What if I told you a secret committee has existed in the United States government since 1947? It was created to recover UFO crash debris, hide alien encounters, and manage exotic technology of extraterrestrial origin. What if that same group had the power to override presidents, bury secrets in black budgets, silence people, and possibly pull the trigger on history-changing events? And what if one of the people they silenced was President John F. Kennedy? I'm John Genoa. This is America's Strangest History. We're going deep into one of the darkest, most persistent theories in American conspiracy history, that President John F. Kennedy was silenced not by a lone gunman in Dallas, but by the shadowy hands of an ultra-secret group known as Majestic 12, or simply MJ-12 for short. This is a group so deeply buried in government secrecy that its very existence is still denied, yet it's been referenced in classified memos. Some suggest this shadow organization called for the unaliving of an American president. This is a humdinger of a JFK conspiracy theory. It involves leaked memos, the discovery of extraterrestrial life, and a president who may have gotten too close to the truth. Fair warning, this is a rabbit hole. So let's begin. Majestic 12, or MJ-12, is the name given to an alleged secret committee of scientists, military leaders, and intelligence officials purportedly formed in 1947 by order of President Harry S. Truman. Why 1947? Because that's the year of the Roswell incident. You know, the infamous crash in New Mexico that some believe was the wreckage of an alien spacecraft. The idea is that President Truman, alarmed by the potential implications of alien contact, ordered the creation of a working group to recover and manage all evidence related to extraterrestrials. This working group would operate outside the constraints of the US Constitution and ultimately be free to do whatever it deemed necessary to carry out its mission. And when I say whatever necessary, I mean anything and everything it deems necessary. Nothing's off the table for this group. The term Majestic 12 first surfaced in the public in 1984 when researcher Jamie Shandara received undeveloped film in the mail. The film, when processed, showed what looked like a top-secret briefing document addressed to then-President-elect Eisenhower in 1952. The document named 12 elite individuals, top military brass and scientists assigned to recover and conceal extraterrestrial technology in 1947 by President Truman. Some names included Vannevar Bush, key science advisor to FDR and Truman, Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter, first CIA director, and General Nathan Twining, Air Materiel Command. A key component to understanding MJ-12 is that it all tied back to Roswell, July 1947. The FBI quickly declared these documents fraudulent, but researchers, including nuclear physicist Dr. Stanton Friedman, argued that they were at least partially authentic. Other documents trickled out over the years, including briefing memos and internal correspondences. We learn a number of things from leaked MJ-12 documents, like 2 alien craft crashed in New Mexico in 1947. Debris and bodies were recovered. The Interplanetary Phenomenon Unit, or IPU, was activated, and Majestic 12 was created by President Truman to contain and exploit this information. Interestingly, this all aligns with now public memos between Truman and then Secretary of Defense James Forrestal, another member of MJ-12 who later died under mysterious circumstances. Now, he wasn't the only member of MJ-12 to die under mysterious circumstances, but let's follow his thread to its conclusion just to illustrate how deep this rabbit hole goes. So, about those mysterious circumstances, you might ask. Forrestal was suffering from what doctors diagnosed as exhaustion and depression in early 1949. He was removed from his post by President Truman in March and hospitalized at Bethesda Naval Hospital for rest. At 1:50 a.m. on May 22nd, he was found dead on the outside ledge of the hospital's 16th floor. He allegedly jumped through the kitchen window with a bathrobe cord tied tightly around his neck. Near the window was a copy of Sophocles' Ajax, open to a passage about suicide, which Forrestal had been reportedly copying by hand. This scenario begs a lot of questions, especially for an elite member of this deep state working group. MJ-12. First question, why was Forrestal isolated in the hospital? Forrestal was under a Marine Corps guard and in seclusion for weeks. He was reportedly recovering well. He was eating, lucid, and hopeful just hours before his death. How about the bathrobe cord? Some reports say the cord was tied tightly around his neck. Strange for a fall. Could this imply an attempted strangulation before the fall? Maybe even being tossed out the window while already unconscious? How about the missing autopsy and limited press access? No official autopsy was released to the public. The press weren't allowed to photograph the scene. Also, many pages of his psychiatric file were classified for decades. And what's the deal with the Sophocles suicide note? Forrestal allegedly copied part of a Greek tragedy that ends with a character committing suicide, but the handwriting was never verified and the page cut off mid-sentence. It's kind of strange, right? How about statements from friends and family? Many close to Forrestal, including his brother Henry, refused to believe that he took his own life. Henry was reportedly on his way to remove James from the hospital the very next day. So, for what it's worth, under these circumstances, Forrestal's death seems a little sus to me. I'm not a big believer in coincidences of this magnitude. Now let's look at Forrestal's CV. He was the Secretary of Defense during the Roswell incident in 1947. He was purportedly opposed to total secrecy and wanted to disclose certain information to allies. According to proponents of the MJ-12 theory, Forrestal's outspoken nature made him a threat to the ultra-secret working group. The official MJ-12 documents list Forrestal as a founding member of the group. His death occurred just weeks after a memo dated April 1949, where he allegedly questioned the ethics of withholding UFO evidence from the public, and yet skeptics scream forgery. For decades, MJ-12 was written off as UFO folklore until forensic testing began. According to Dr. Robert Wood and forensic experts like James Black and Specken Labs, many MJ-12 documents were typed on correct vintage typewriters, like a 1940 Underwood. They used authenticated watermarked paper made in the 1950s. They also showed inks, stamps, and ballpoint pens chemically dated to their claimed timeframes. For example, on page 8 of the report, forensic tests confirmed red security stamps matched 1950s ink. The burned memo used IBM Courier type introduced in 1956. More on the burned memo in a bit. Also, a Truman signature on one memo was likely made by pantograph. This is common for signature reproductions at the time and similar to today's now infamous autopen. In short, if these are fakes, they're extremely elaborate, decades old, and far beyond amateur hoax quality. Across 100 MJ-12 related documents, patterns emerge. Air accident reports referencing unidentified crashes with no terrestrial match. Recovery manuals detailing how to seal off UFO debris fields. The White Hot report, which describes retrieved alien materials and biological entities. And a memo from JFK to the CIA dated November 12, 1963, just 10 days before his unaliving, requesting full access to MJ-12 operations. Yes, JFK asked for MJ-12's UFO intelligence, then he was unalived days after his request. Contrary to popular belief, JFK did have a documented interest in UFOs, though he didn't use that term. He talked about unexplained aerial phenomena and wanted access to the classified intelligence. We know from declassified documents that in June 1961, JFK met with then CIA Director Allen Dulles and inquired about CIA involvement in UFO investigations. In November 1963, just 10 days before his death, he issued National Security Action Memorandum 271 asking for cooperation with the Soviet Union on space exploration. So why is this important? Because many UFO sightings were considered potential Soviet technology, and JFK wanted transparency between the two powers to prevent an accidental nuclear war. Some interpret this as an innocent diplomatic move, but others, especially within the UFO research community, believe it was the first step towards disclosure. In the late 1990s, a document surfaced known as the burned memo. This was because the original had been partially burned and photographed. It was leaked to Timothy Cooper, a former military analyst, who said it came from a deep insider source. Here's what it said. It's dated November 12, 1963. It's addressed to MJ1, the head of Majestic 12 at the time. It addresses JFK as Lancer, his Secret Service code name. Perhaps most significantly, it clearly states, and I quote, "Lancer has made some inquiries which we cannot allow. If the concern becomes critical, it must be wet." Wet in CIA slang means assassination. The memo was received through a CIA internal mail pouch in 2000. Independent dating places the typing and ink in the correct era. If the memo is real, and that's a big if, it suggests someone at the highest levels considered JFK a threat to their control over extraterrestrial intelligence. Skeptics say the memo's a forgery, but handwriting analysts have said that the paper style, the ink, and the phrasing are consistent with 1960s era's internal memos. And if it's a fake, why would someone risk forging such an inflammatory, obscure reference? Skeptics claim it's too perfect, but to date, no forger has stepped forward and claimed responsibility, and its technical elements check out. So, was JFK unalived to prevent disclosure? Based on these memos, to the extent that they're accurate, it appears to be the case. Here's a scenario for you. Let's say Roswell was real. Let's say MJ12 existed. Let's say it continues to exist under a different name today. Why the silence? Two reasons: power and panic. Power being reverse engineering alien technology equals dominance, so why share the technology? Panic being public reaction to confirmation of extraterrestrial life, especially during the Cold War, could destabilize governments, religions, even economies. Compounding matters, with JFK threatening to share UFO data with the Soviets, MJ12 may have seen this as treason. MJ12 didn't just want secrecy, they needed it. To understand why JFK would be a threat, you have to understand how the intelligence community operated back then and how MJ12, if real, would have fit into it. After World War II, the newly formed CIA was given expansive powers. This included covert action, foreign coups, and black budget research. UFOs, seen as national security issues, fell under its jurisdiction. Many of the alleged MJ12 members were former OSS officers, atomic scientists, or even high-level Pentagon figures. JFK, after the Bay of Pigs fiasco, fired CIA Director Allen Dulles and said he wanted to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces. As you can imagine, this didn't sit well. Now imagine this. You're part of a deeply secret group managing the most paradigm-shattering information in human history, that we're not alone. And the president, who you think is soft on communism, wants to give that data to the Soviets. Would you stop him? Theorists say someone did. Let's be fair. There's no smoking gun, no signed confession, no verified unalive order from MJ12. The documents may be fake. JFK had plenty of enemies, from the mafia to anti-Castro Cubans to the Federal Reserve crowd. The Warren Commission said Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, but still, the coincidences stack up. JFK asked for UFO files on November 12th. The Byrne memo is dated November 12th. He was shot on November 22nd. The CIA stonewalled his requests. The Air Force refused to declassify its Project Blue Book files to JFK. Those who tried to follow JFK's path, like Robert Kennedy or John F. Kennedy Jr., met similar ends. So, coincidence or conspiracy? After all this, here's what we know. JFK wanted access to classified UFO files. He wanted to cooperate with the Soviets to prevent a space-based war, and he died before either of those things could happen. Whether or not MJ12 exists, whether or not they pulled the trigger, one thing is certain: someone wanted JFK silenced. So, what's the verdict? Dozens of pages of forensically verified documents say MJ12 was real. Roswell was the trigger, and JFK may have been the cost of truth. If even 10% of this is accurate, it means that history as we know it is missing its most important chapter. The chapter where humans first confirmed that we're not alone and chose to keep it a secret. This is America's Strangest History, and somewhere in a dusty Pentagon vault or private government contractor's basement, the full story of Majestic 12 is still waiting. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, keep your eyes and ears open, and thanks for watching.